All right, I saw several guests just coming into our auditorium to join our afternoon session. So once again, welcome back. Now, I believe everybody enjoyed lunch. You know, it's very delicious and exquisite. So it's, yeah, correct. We understand that. Yeah, especially for our international guests, we understand that. So that's all right. Now, currently now is 1:30. Officially, we're gonna start our next session. It will be session 6. The title is Disaster Risk Financial, regarding the support and the subsidy and also the plan of the finance part. So at this moment, we want to invite guests that come out to the stage. And the first one is the moderator. Now, we are very happy and pleased to have the program director and adjunct faculty from Asia Institute of Management, Quezon, Mr. Marqueza, Ms. Marqueza Catalina and Reyes, to moderate the session. Please come on stage, take your seat. And on site, we have 3 guests. The first one is the speaker, Zhang Jialin Elton Chan, who is the president of Taiwan Residential Earthquake Insurance Fund, Taipei. Welcome. Take your seats. And we have 2 panelists. The first one is Commissioner Hu Xiaolan, who is from the Department of Finance, Taipei City Government. 台北市财政局局长胡小兰胡局长 and another panelist, 张世杰 Bill Zhang, from the Department and Risk Management and Insurance, National Zhengzhi University, Professor Zhang Shijie. And we also have 2 guest speakers. They are online. One is Jie-Qing Chen from Urban Development Specialist, Climate Change, Water and Urban Development Sector Office, Asian Development Bank from Manila. Now he's online. And another one is the David Jacom Pelit, the head of the Resilient Development Program, ICLEI, World Secretariat from Quito. So we have 2 guests online. So currently, we'll give the floor to our moderator, please. Thank you. Microphone, please. Just push up and wait for 3 seconds. Again.
Hello, there. There you go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
The room is half empty or half full, depending on how you see it. Positive thinking, it's half full. And the rest are still having their desserts downstairs, I imagine. All right? Because I think the buffet lunch is so good. I really had a hard time getting away from the buffet. They were telling me it's time to go back. I said, okay. But I said, could I get some ice cream, please, before I go back? So I see some of our colleagues are coming back in. That's great. All right, so it was a sumptuous lunch, right? And we didn't really have a lot of time to enjoy the buffet, but I'm imagining that everybody now is sleepy, right? After having a big lunch, a hearty lunch, we'd like to take a nap, right? So I think this, this session, being the last session for this CityNet Disaster Cluster Seminar, and also the last session for today before we have our site visit, and they tell me that we have to keep everything on time, okay? So now we're having more and more people. So welcome to this session 6. Welcome to our panelists and our moderator here on site, and to our online. There you are. You can see them on the screen. All right. So this session is all about disaster risk financing. Okay? So disaster risk financing is all about how do we protect our budgets? How do we get financial protection from the impacts of disasters, the ever-increasing impacts of disasters? How do we get funding for post-disaster activities like relief, response, recovery, and reconstruction? Okay, how do we cope or how do we adapt to these increasing impacts of disasters and emergencies, the shocks that are caused by different hazards, natural hazards, even technological hazards, like the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant meltdown? So disasters are now becoming more compounded, more and cascading, and therefore the damage and losses are increasing through time. So we need to find ways and means to finance disaster risk, meaning increase our financial resilience against disasters and shocks. Okay? And for today, I'm very, very happy that we have a wonderful set of speakers, our presenters, and I will introduce them to you one by one. And after that, we will have the reaction and the perspectives of our panelists. Okay? All right, so I think the rest are napping in their rooms upstairs, but the show must go on, right? Okay, so I will introduce the first speaker in this session, and I'm very happy that he is here, physically present. Our first speaker is Mr. Elton Chang. Yes, you are. And last night I met him during dinner. And he is the president of the Taiwan Residential Earthquake Insurance Fund, or TRAIF. He has held various positions in the insurance industry in the past, including being CEO of the Swiss Re Corporate Solutions in China. He will speak about the Earthquake Insurance Fund, established after the Chichi earthquake in 1999. And as we all know, tomorrow is the anniversary or the commemoration of this high magnitude earthquake. So please, Mr. Elton Chang, you have the floor.
It works. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Taipei. Especially, this is an important day. As just moderator just mentioned that tomorrow is anniversary for our Chichi earthquake. Why Chichi earthquake is so important for us? Because it's a major reason why Taiwan established residential earthquake insurance fund. At that time, our take-up rate, penetration rate for residential earthquake insurance less than 0.2%. It means almost none for the residential building. I'm glad to share with you, after 22 years, current our take-up rate, penetration rate is up to 38.75%. Maybe when you compare to 100%, you think still nothing, but trust me, this is not compulsory insurance. So can get up to 38.75%, still something we are pleasing to share with the attendants. It's something, really can share with everybody, how we make it happen, okay? First of all, I will share with you that most of Southeast Asia people know, fully understand with the Pacific Ring of Fire. Taiwan, exactly the same as Japan, New Zealand, even Indonesia, Malaysia. We have sort of a plate activity. And Taiwan is a typical place. So as you may see, Taiwan, you may hear a lot of the Hualien earthquake, especially this year. It's a very special year. After 25 years, the activity of earthquake obviously become frequent. And as you may know, April, we have just suffered a big earthquake. This earthquake is the biggest loss for us, residential fund, in the 22 years. But thanks God, this is small, still small earthquake because the epicenter not on the land area. Okay, Pacific Ring of Fire, all of us familiar with it. But something I want to share with everybody. If you live in this area, then that's our life, to live with earthquake. Well, that's very important. So everybody knows that earthquake, you don't know when and how big it is, but it will come sooner or later. That's why we need a sort of risk financing, a solution for our people, for the country, and for the society. I have just mentioned that this TRAF has been established for 22 years. And I also mentioned the take-up rate now is up to 38.75%. If you know something about Japan, Japan has been with their sort of fund program, for earthquake, but currently around 35%. But interesting, we found that each and every time, if the activity of earthquake become frequent, the take-up rate will get up, will increase dramatically. It's interesting, but we don't want to see that too much. Okay, talk about penetration rate. This is our pie chart. You can see what I can share with you is the early 10 years, the increase of the penetration rate, mainly from our strategy to bond fire insurance with earthquake insurance together. So the take-up rate increased dramatically in the first 10 years. But thereafter, a lot of increase rely on our keep education, increase the awareness of the risk. So right now, we can reach about 38.75%, and this year it's increasing faster because this year was frequent earthquake activity. Oh, I bypassed this one. Okay. Oh, I ran to a wrong direction. The other things I would like to share with everybody is about the reserve. In 22 years, you can see our reserve accumulation increased dramatically and steadily. Right now, it's more than 52 billion. But I still have to say thanks God, because in the past 2 years, we don't have big, losses. However, it proves this structure, this program, it works. It successfully accumulates, we say, catastrophe capital, earthquake capital, for Taiwan to be ready to handle what if there is a big earthquake. 52 billion, it means that at least right now we can resist the Gigi earthquake twice. So it still means a lot for Taiwan. Okay, because time, I need to do closing for my session. Time is up. I think it's very important, you know, when we, the day one when Taiwan, we established this program. Actually, we have learned a lot, you know, from Japan, especially Japan and New Zealand. So our program is to solve social problem instead of insurance problem. That's the difference of Taiwan's earthquake program. Then what does that mean, social problem instead of insurance problem? Because if you look into our program, we emphasize quick to pay. The second is to provide a quick cash flow to the people suffered earthquake losses, especially collapse or constructive total loss. It makes it quick. So the purpose of TRAF is a little bit different from Japan or New Zealand. It's more on providing a quick cash flow. So that's, it's pretty different from other countries. And it works. And people may ask me about, we say, protection gap. OECD, as you may know, protection gap, penetration rate is important. Our program is to support commercial, I would say, residential commercial earthquake to grow. And that's how we try to solve the problem. If you have money and you want to have more cover, then you can buy sort of commercial, residential commercial earthquake. But we emphasize to cover the most of the people. What if they suffer? They can get money immediately. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Elton. So yeah, so we heard about the Taiwan Residential Earthquake Insurance Fund and how it provides immediate liquidity to affected house owners, right, after an earthquake. So let's move to the next speaker. So our second speaker, there you are, is online. There. So our second speaker is joining us online, and his name is Mr. Chen Qing-Chiang, Dr. Chen Qing-Chiang. Qing-Chiang is an urban development specialist in the water and urban development sector at the Asian Development Bank. So he will discuss the role of disaster risk finance from the perspective of the Asian Development Bank or a multilateral development bank. Dr. Qing-Chiang, you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for the invite. And it's a pity that I could not be present, but I'm sure that there are lots of in-person collaboration opportunities in the future. So again, I'm Jin-Qiang Chen from Asian Development Bank. So next page, please. As our previous speaker has already discussed, so I won't repeat over here. I just want to highlight that for Asia and the Pacific, we are facing a high impact from the disasters. So in the past 50 years, we have witnessed 2 million casualties and more than 7 billion affected people, which is significantly higher than the global average. And in terms of the economic losses, we have around 180 million US dollar losses every day. So because of that, ADB, Asian Development Bank, has promoted a lot in effective disaster risk management. And in the past decade, we have invested over 6.5 billion US dollar in the disaster risk management projects, mainly dominated by the post-disaster support and the disaster risk reduction. And the ADB, we also have our disaster and the emergency assistance policy. And its policy requires all the interventions to start from a disaster risk reduction. And for those disaster risks are not reducible or is too expensive to be reduced, then we look into the residual risk management through disaster preparedness, disaster risk financing, and the disaster response. So next page, please. And this figure shows the relationship between the frequency and the severity of disasters. And it also shows a diagram of our disaster and the emergency management policy. So the number one is a disaster reduction. Through disaster reduction, we can reduce the impact of disasters significantly. And this is deemed to be the most cost-effective way to reduce the disaster impact. For those high and once a disaster risks cannot be reduced or is too expensive to be reduced, then we look at how we can manage those residual risks. So the number two is risk retention. So for those high frequent and low impact disaster events, the government are able to retain those risks. And for those risks are quite impactful, and they can those risks can be transferred to the capital market, insurance companies, private sector, etc. And that's the number three. And number four is the international assistance. So for those risks are too rare, which means they are quite expensive to be transferred to the market, capital market, and those risks are very impactful, then it requires international assistance in the aftermath of disasters. So next page, please. So the left figure shows how ADB take the layered approach to disaster risk financing, including the risk retention, transfer, and the international assistance based on their frequency and the severity of the impact. At the same time, we also look at how we can deliver the support to the affected people. So on one hand side, disaster risk financing talk about how we mobilize resources, and on the other hand side, the delivery mechanism talk about how we can deliver those support to the affected people. And there are mainly three principles that we care about: the timeliness, how fast we can provide those support to the affected people; fairness, how much money we should provide to those affected people and the businesses; and preciseness, how precise we can provide to those people, because sometimes there is a targeting error for the social protection. People often provide support to unaffected people and leaving those affected people unsupported. Next page. And these slides talk about the major financing modalities ADB provide to our developing member countries for disaster risk management. Before the disaster occurs, we have a disaster risk reduction and preparedness mandate. So those traditional loan modalities are able to provide support for those objectives. ADB also offers contingency disaster financing. It's similar to the CAT DDO from the World Bank. It's a type of policy-based loan. It can provide supports before the disaster, during the disaster, and in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. We also provide grants for those vulnerable countries. We also provide another modality. It's called emergency assistance loan. This is compared to the contingency disaster financing, it is more stringent, and the use of the loan proceeds is can be only used to support the imports of some priority goods and products for countries. And during the reconstruction, it's part of the development process. So we can use the traditional loan products to support disaster risk management objectives. And those modalities and products are used for our sovereign lending, which means that we lend to our developing member countries. Because of that, since we are talking about the city network in this meeting, if our city members are interested in getting support from ADB, one of the approach is that you can talk with the Ministry of Finance of your country, and from there they can discuss with ADB and put your disaster risk management or city resilience projects as one of the pipeline projects, so that we can start from there and identify the most suitable modalities to support the resilience development in your city. So next page, please. So I'm mindful about the time. So this one, I just want to quickly mention that disaster risk financing is just one intervention from the integrated disaster risk management, which requires us to look from the disaster risk reduction and residual risk management. And for the policymaker to invest in the disaster resilience, they should look comprehensively into different options and measures for disaster risk management. And at the same time, we should also look at the direct benefit of those measures, as well as the co-benefits, including the economic growth and the environmental, social, and governance benefits. Next page. Once the policymakers are exposed to different type of measures, because of limited human capacity and budget, they need to cost effectively prioritize those options. So this methodology is being developed, and we will publish in our working paper. I won't go into details now, but the gist of this approach is that to help the policymakers to make decisions on various disaster risk management options, so that they can use the least cost to achieve the highest improvement in the disaster resilience. Next page, please. And next one. So here is the takeaway. Disasters are not natural. They are closely tied to the development activities. And from ADB's policy for disaster risk management projects, we begin with the disaster risk reduction. And for those disaster risks that are not reducible or are too expensive to be reduced, then we seek alternative solutions that focus on the preparedness and the response to manage those residual risks. And ADB will take a risk layer approach to analyze the government liability and possible financial protection gaps in resources to address the post-disaster needs. And once we mobilize resources, we need to consider timely, fair, and precise delivery mechanism to provide those supports to affected people. And ADB will offer a wide range of products to support the disaster risk management objective. But when a policymaker, they look into disaster risk management, they should explore all the possible options to improve the resilience. And we also offer a methodology to prioritize those cost-effective options when during their deliberation of various disaster risk management measures. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Chin Chang. So we've heard so far 2 speakers, and from Dr. Chin Chang's presentation, we heard that there are different financial solutions to, to protect the budget of governments, for example. So Dr. Chin Chang talked about sovereign financial mechanisms, sovereign risk financing mechanisms, while Mr. Elton talked about solutions for the household level, okay? And so we will continue to hear about other financial solutions from our next speaker. So, so far we've heard from our 2 speakers, one major solution or financial product is insurance, no risk transfer. So again, we may hear about this financial solution from our next speaker, and our next speaker is David Jacome Polit. He is the head of Resilient Development Program of the ICLEI World Secretariat. ICLEI is also an intergovernmental organization devoted to sustainable development. So he's also joining us via Zoom, and his topic is all about enhancing just and inclusive urban resilience and anticipation. So David, take it away. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning here, good afternoon over there. Indeed, ICLEI is a city network, 2,500 cities from around the world who receive technical assistance so they can improve their capacities, not only for risk management and resilience enhancement, but also for other developmental needs. My presentation today is going to focus on resilience, but particularly I would like to make emphasis on justice and inclusiveness. Can we move to the next slide, please? Just to mention, disaster risk financing basically is the financing of disaster risk management. It means the plans that you would have for your city to cope to prepare for and to cope for a disaster. That is what you have to finance, and needs to be taken into account that it does not replace risk reduction and resilience measures, as mentioned by the previous speaker. It has to work in tandem as a whole. It needs to be part of a whole strategy. And when it comes to the final step, or one of the last steps, disaster risk insurance, it needs to be noted that is one possible component in a disaster risk finance strategy. But the whole idea before financing these type of strategies is to have three components. They were mentioned again before. Predictability in terms of the funds that you have available, that needs to be properly planned and accordingly. Timely manner, ex ante and ex post a disaster, and to be used effectively. And here the word effectively becomes critical because it has to aim, first of all, to the most critical systems that support the city's functioning, but also the most vulnerable, the ones who need it the most, because they are the ones who have to walk the longer path for inclusiveness and sustainable development in those cities. Next slide, please. What this figure shows is basically the imbalance between the funds needed ex ante and the funds needed ex post. It's always better and it's always going to be cheaper to focus on risk prevention and risk reduction, than to solely rely on emergency relief, recovery, or reconstruction or social support. And as you can see, usually emergency relief takes less resources, recovery a little bit more, and reconstruction can be quite costly. So working on risk reduction and risk prevention is always going to be the best way to do it. However, needs to be taken into account when it comes to the ex ante part, that if there is no equity and justice before the event, any response is going to be equally difficult to bring equity in justice. Risk prevention and risk reduction also means working in equity and justice before the event. Otherwise, the gaps are going to get wider. Next slide, please. I would not go too much into this image. Some of this was already mentioned, but the only message here is that the strategy, financing strategy of any city needs to consider the capacity and what the funds are going to be used for. So for higher frequency events, you may use budgetary instruments when they are not that large. But when you have higher capital needs, then you would go to other different instruments, contingent financing, for example, or other market solutions. Next slide, please. And just wanted to put on the table one example, a project that ICLE is working on implementing. This is funded by the Development Bank of Germany, KfW, with funds from BMZ. Basically, what we aim at is to provide insurance coverage for 10 cities in Latin America and the Caribbean. We aim at supporting 7.5 million poor and vulnerable populations. We aim at offering a coverage of 100 million euros worth of insurance products, and this needs to happen until 2025. We already have the 10 cities, and on these slides, I have basically two messages. The first one, and this is a message for every city. If you wanna have support, and if you wanna access to fund, to finance your resilience and risk management strategies and plans, you need to have the right commitments. You need to have the commitment to work and adjust public policies and to make funds available when needed to support any of the possible solutions. The idea with this project is to go from a qualitative risk assessment, which is the usual that you get, kind of like an explanation of what would be the consequences if something happened, to a quantitative one. You need to be able to measure if you want to manage it. You need to be able to know how much you can reduce and prevent, how much you can transfer, and how much you can retain so that you can plan accordingly. But going back to the equitative and just want to say that from the 10 cities that we are working on right now, the best ones, the best positioned ones to work in this agenda are the ones who have obtained and have more and better data about the vulnerable populations, location, how they are composed, etc., and about the critical infrastructure. These are the ones who are better placed to have better financing instruments for disaster risk management. Next slide, please. And of course, very importantly, along the way or together with equitable and just, there is always a very much needed gender lens. This is also a capacity building component that the project offers to participating cities. Next slide, please. I'm going to stop there. Here you have my details in case you need to reach out and if you require some more information. Thank you very much, and I yield back to the moderator.
Thank you, David. All right, so we've heard the three presentations, and I think it's very clear that one point that they're trying to make is the role of insurance in providing financial protection, not only for households like what TREF is doing, the Taiwan Residential Earthquake Insurance Facility, but also for governments, whether they're local or city governments and national governments. No, so these are the sovereign risk financing solutions. But I'd like at this point to take a pause for a bit, because I'd like to see from the audience who has insurance. Who has insurance? Any kind of insurance. Health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, whatever insurance. Everybody, can you stand up, those who have any kind of insurance coverage? Stand up. So I want you to wake up a little bit, because it's after lunch and you're like, I'm looking at all of you and you're like, sleepy. So, okay. So, some people in the audience don't have insurance at all? Really? Okay, I'm surprised. Yeah, we have a few in the audience. Okay, those who are standing, remain standing. If you have earthquake insurance, typhoon insurance, or flood insurance, any of these, typhoon, earthquake, flood? For the house, not for you, but for the house. Remain standing. Remain standing. Okay, so many are actually taking their seats. Now there's only like half of the audience have earthquake insurance, typhoon insurance, or flood insurance. So congratulations to all of you. Very well done. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. You can take your seats. You can sit down. Okay, so that means one point about insurance at the household level is the low penetration rate. No, what Mr. Elton was saying. But the other points from the two presenters are that first, if there are risk transfer is an example of that is insurance. Okay, but there are other risk management measures. No, part of an integrated disaster risk management is first you reduce your risk. Disaster risk reduction is always the first step. Okay, reduce your risk, reduce your potential damage and losses. And then there's risk retention, right? Risk retention is when the governments pay for the cost of the disaster. They provide the money for the affected population, etc. They provide for the repair. But then there's also the point from our colleague from ADB, there's risk sharing. Okay, so governments, city governments, local governments can actually pool their risks. That's risk sharing. And then, of course, there's risk transfer, right? So you transfer the risk to the capital market, to the insurance industry, okay? But the point is that this should be part of all of these risk management measures should be bundled together. So insurance is not a panacea to our problem. No, we have to always invest in risk reduction and building resilience. No? Thank you so much to our presenters. Do we still have time to have you, Dr. Chinchang? You're still around? Because I heard that you have to leave. No?
I need to leave at in 8 minutes.
In
Sorry
8 minutes. So, if it's all right with our panelists, maybe we can ask questions to Dr. Chinchang if you have questions from the audience. Yes, Laddie from Legazpi City.
It was mentioned that there is an emergency assistance loans. So can local governments or city governments apply for this kind of loan?
Yes, Dr. Chinchang, did you hear?
Yes, this is our Filipino friend from Legazpi, what I heard. Yes, so all the lending modalities that I mentioned in the presentation are sovereign lending modalities, which means that our window is through the Ministry of Finance of our developing member countries. So if there is any, normally for the emergency assistance loan, it's once there is a request from our member countries in the aftermath of disaster, then it's between the between ADB and the country policy dialogue. Then they can approve certain type of loan to support the recovery and relief of the recovery of the country. So from the city perspective, I would highly encourage you can talk with the central government and also explore other modalities, especially the contingency disaster financing modality that has a broader perspective than the emergency assistance loan, which only whose loan proceeds can only be used to support the import of some priority goods and equipment. So for the contingency disaster financing loan modality, you can talk with your central government, and the central government will discuss with ADB, and if they found it's useful and suitable, they can put it in the pipeline. And that kind of contingency financing loan will be discussed prior to the occurrence of a disaster. So once the disaster happens and our clients' countries can request for disbursement to support certain type of disaster relief and recovery. So that is more, I think that's more, give you more flexible use of loan proceeds, and it's longer. So once the loan was approved, it's already committed from ADB side. So it just need to wait for the disaster to happen. So that's a normal procedure for our ADB's sovereign lending window.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Ladi, for the question, and Dr. Chin Chang. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're very happy to have you. All right. So, are there other questions before Dr. Chin Chang leaves the Zoom room? Oh, there's another one. Yes, at the back.
Hi, Dr. Jing Chan. You mentioned about the layered approach. So can you give us some idea on how city governments can ensure adequate financial protection using risk layering approach?
Sure. Thank you for that question. So from the layered approach, basically, first of all, everything should start from disaster risk reduction. So for those risks cannot be reduced, for those highly frequent risks and associated with low impact risks, city government should think about how you can return these risks, because maybe it's too expensive for you to find an insurance company, or you develop some cat bond to transfer those risks to the capital market. Maybe it's a little bit exaggerated. So for those small risks, maybe you can just use some kind of contingency budget or reallocation of the budget from the city government perspective to manage those risks once the disaster occurs. However, for those kind of larger disaster events, which are relatively frequent, but at the same time has a higher impact, you might want to transfer those risks to the capital market or to the insurance company, etc. So you have to pay the premium on an annual basis, even though there is no occurrence of the disaster. And at that time, ADB can also support in structuring our support for the disaster risk transfer. And for those very rare disasters, maybe the city government doesn't want to transfer those risks to the capital market, because if it is 1 in 100 year return period event, and the city government doesn't want to pay the annual premium because those disasters are quite rare. So maybe you just need to once if there is a protection gap that is not breached, and once the disaster occurs, then you can seek some support from the international organizations, including the UN and ADB, etc., who can provide immediate financial support for immediate disaster response, including the relief and the recovery. So at the same time, I think ADB is also developing some instruments that can provide immediate support to our client countries, and such support can only be used for disaster risk reduction. Which means that when we provide support in the aftermath of disaster, it's not just for general use of the loan proceeds. It's more focused on how we can reduce the disaster risks and build a better future. So that's how the layered approach for disaster risk financing works, also at the country level, also at the city level.
All right. Thank you so much for that question, and Dr. Chin Chang for joining us. Okay, so I think we should move on to the next part of our session. And that next part of our session is the time for our panelists. So I would like to introduce our first panelist, Xiao Lan Hu, or Landy. Landy Hu. Landy is a commissioner at the Department of Finance, Taipei City Government. As head of the Department of Finance, she oversees the management of Taipei City finances, debt, and city-owned assets to increase the financial efficiency of Taipei. So, Landy, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to share about how Taipei is preparing financially for disasters. In Taipei, we have taken steps to build strong finances under Mayor Zhang's leadership. For example, we raise about $5 billion every year, which is the highest number among Taiwan's major cities. Last year, we also attracted $840 million in private investment. This helps fund important services like transportation, social welfare, and emergency services, making Taipei stronger. In May, we reduced our debt by $150 million. And since Mayor Zhang became mayor, we've cut the debt by $460 million. This saves us over $3 million a year in interest payments. We also thinking about sustainability. In January, we also issued social bonds in March, promoting inclusive finance so that everyone benefit. The sustainable bonds we raised $310 million to improve the metro system. In conclusion, all three speakers talked about the need of financial planning, partnership, and using new technology. Taipei is already following these ideas to ensure we are preparing for future challenges. We are working to achieve Mayor Zhang's vision of a sustainable capital of hope. I hope the examples I shared from Taipei can be helpful to this discussion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Landy. I like that, the tagline for Taipei, the sustainable capital of hope. All right, so before we go to our next panelist, I was just given a note that our presenter, our speaker, David, also needs to leave in a few minutes. So if there are questions that you would like to direct to David, this is the time to do so. David talked about ICLEI's just and inclusive urban resilience and urban financing mechanisms, that are inclusive and just and has gender lens. Are there questions for David? Yes, you do.
I might have a question because
go ahead.
First, thank you for the moderators and the wonderful audience because they mentioned about risk transfer. I know there is very important to buy insurance, and I know there is a very important to transfer risk from capital market. But I know that if you transfer from capital market, the security that you should use, it should be used U.S. denominated securities. I know that the interest rate right now is pretty high. If you really go to the capital market, do they become much more expensive, or you go to a traditional insurance vehicle to transfer the risk? And that might be a very important question because the reinsurance market is pretty hard right now. So if you choose the capital market, you bring out the issue. The first one issue is basis risk. The other issue is very expensive, the security you need to issue in the capital market. Thank you.
Okay.
My question. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bill Chang. Maybe David would like to answer that question.
Sure, happy to do so. So what the professor is saying is true. So it goes back to one of the points that was made by you, the presenter, but also in my presentation. And we need to think of risk transfer as one possible solution, but not the solution. And it is a mistake to take it in such a way. Now, when it comes to market solutions, it is true that you are exposed to the fluctuations in the market, meaning it can impact your capacity either to access to those funds or to in the end acquire any possible insurance solution. The work that we are doing currently is to understand their financing capacities, to understand what are the needs, what needs to be transferred, and then look at the market to see what is available. That's the exercise that we are doing right now. However, the type of insurance that we are aiming to offer through the market to these cities are not the regular products that you have already there available. Are, first of all, tailor-made. Second of all, the idea is to test the risks and to offer a pooling facility or mechanism that works at a regional level to reduce the demands of capital and the cost of capital, and also operational costs, so that this can be a little bit more affordable. However, I have to say, from an engineering point of view, it requires certainly a lot of work and a lot of effort. I hope this answers the question. Also, just wanted to mention, usually insurances for cities are not quite that common. So, but I do think they need to be taken into account as a complement, and therefore they need to be there.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Are there questions from the floor? If none, then I'd like to follow up that question. Because I noted that you mentioned the market-based solutions, David, like insurance-linked securities, as mentioned. But how do market-based solutions balance the need for profit with the urgency of providing aid to disaster-affected communities? Because you're speaking about just and inclusive risk financing and resilience.
This is a question that usually comes to us, particularly not only Italy, but also the funders. So there is not so much justice when we are basically supporting private pockets through the purchase of insurance, and this is basically the point that you are making. However, there are no immediate risk transferring solutions that could support these efforts. Cities in the region may basically rely on the support from central governments. What the facility aims at doing, the risk pool mechanism aims at doing, is to basically partner with insurance solution providers and agree with them that at least a part of what would be not only possible revenue, but also the resources that could be used as part of the pool to support not only through insurance solutions, but as liquidity, immediate liquidity to cities, would be part of the solution. But at this point, it is true, we cannot go around basically going after the private sector and private actors in that sense.
Okay. Yes, I totally agree that, you know, there are different ways to different means of financing risk, and insurance is just one of it, and that it should always be bundled with risk reduction. So at this point, I think we need to let go of David as well. So thank you so much, David, for joining us this afternoon. All right? Okay, so now we proceed to the next intervention. Our panelist, our second panelist. Let me introduce our second panelist, and he is a professor and a member of the faculty of the Department of Risk Management and Insurance at the National Cheng Chi University and the chairperson of Risk Management Society. Please welcome Professor
Thank you.
Shichi Bill Chang.
Yeah. First, thank you for the moderators and the wonderful audience. You can still, wake up right now. So it's still like 1 minute left. So the most important thing I still remember is that like 20 years ago, I sit in a commissioner for the Financial Supervisor Commissions. We think about the earthquake insurance protections. Because we have so low premiums and we provide mediocre protections. If you want to increase the protection, we should increase the premium. It's very hard to do that process right now. Consider about the risk transfer. The first tier will be the retention. If the retention too high, it's no protection at all. The second tier will be risk pool for the insurance company. They should put the risk and take all the risk. Then they see the risk to the third tier will be through the risk transfer. The last resort, we call that the government will take all the responsibility for last resort. But right now, if we transfer the risk to the reinsurance market, the premium is so high. So we will think about how can we transfer risk. If you transfer risk from the capital market, you should use this securitization way to securitize your risk. But you should go to the US dollars. And you know that the interest rate for US dollar for the 10 years is 3.5%. And you should add the risk spread. That means that you will be more than 5%. So how can you transfer the risk from capital market? You pay the coupon, which is over 5%. It's really hard to do it. So the way we can think about is that we through the reinsurance program right now. And if we can cooperate from the borders, if Taipei City do an excellent job, if we pull the risk from different regions, is it possible that we can create a lower insurance program with a lower premium? I think it's very hard to do it. But if we can start to think about how we can pull the risk for the regional cities and make the premium could be lower for the futures. If you go to the capital market, there might be the good tool to transfer risk. But right now, during the high interest rate, it's really expensive. If to the 3 or 4 years, it's impossible to do it. So my recommendation is you can think about how to do a risk transfer from the original reinsurance transactions to make the premium to be stabilized and to be cheaper than the capital market, and to do the corporations from different regions, create a joint program to transfer risk. I think it's very important to do it right now. So if I can make any concrete takeaway recommendation, that was my recommendation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Bill Chang. Okay, so now that we've heard all our presenters and our panelists, are there questions from the floor? I'll ask you first because I have a question actually to Mr. Elton. Okay, I'm going to ask my question now. So Mr. Elton mentioned that there's low penetration or take-up rate for the TRAVE, right? In spite of the fact that the premium is low. Why is that?
The day one when we designed this program, as I just mentioned, focusing on social problem. So what's the social problem? So we designed it as sort of micro insurance. it's emergency relief instead of compensation of your damage or losses. So that makes things easier to promote the products, but it's easier to make it a quick to pay products. So in short, for example, this April earthquake, in 30 days, we can close all the investigation and settle payment almost 80% in 30 days. So it really reached our goal, say emergency relief. So the day one, you have to make sure what are you going to do. You are going to solve insurance problem or social problem. That's it.
Okay, I understand that you have a quick payout mechanism, 30 days you get paid, there's compensation. Isn't this, why is this not enough for, Taiwanese residents to get the insurance, earthquake insurance policy? You said that 13.8% is actually high, relatively. But what is the goal? Is the goal 100% coverage for all residents, or what is the goal? Why is it that, that Taiwan is very earthquake prone, and everybody knows that last April you just had a huge earthquake. So why is it that the take up is not increasing?
New Zealand people tell me that the New Zealand people, they love to buy insurance. So that's why their take-up rate 90%. But honestly, I don't think that's true, because America, as I know, they also love to buy insurance, but their take-up rate is much lower than that. Okay, but it's not the place for us to argue about that. But what I'm trying to say, if this is not compulsory insurance, when we talk about earthquake insurance, this is sort of 100 years return period. It's very difficult for you to try to make it, high as you expect to be. So I would just say, according to my evaluation, I would say if the market can reach up to 60%, I think that's really high enough, because the nature of the risk is totally different from travel insurance. Travel insurance, I may say maybe up to 80%. But travel insurance, 80%. What do you expect earthquake?
Okay, thank you. So I've been notified that the time is up for our session. So I'd like to give you my takeaways for this session. I think it's very clear that there are financial solutions to disaster risks. And we've heard about risk reduction first, investing in prevention and mitigation to lessen the impacts of disasters. And then we look at the cost of disasters. How are cities going to cover the cost of disaster response, of recovery, of reconstruction, especially reconstruction, because that's a big part of it requires a large amount of resources, the reconstruction. So cities should start thinking about their strategy for disaster risk financing. It could be a layered approach, layered financing, and looking at the different ways of reducing risks at the same time. Okay, and we heard also from Professor Chang and Ms. Landy that in Taiwan, they're looking for innovative ways to reduce their financial exposure and increase their financial resilience. So I think at this point, we are very, very much happy to finish the session. So thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to our presenter.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind and very professional moderation. So could you please stand up, rise, and get around on the central stage. Now, photographer would like to take a picture for this panel. But unfortunately, we have two guest speaker online, they cannot join this one, but we try to Photoshop inside if possible. All right, smile. Yes. All right, and hold your thumbs up in front to the success of this session 6. The financial support and plan is quite important. And also, some advisors advise that this should be covered in these seminars this year. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the guests on the stage to provide your insight and professional opinions about this topic. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and for all the distinguished guests still on site, and we also have several audience online. They watch the video, live streaming, and then probably have some comments on the blank box. They can leave the message there. So during the 2 days, we not just the on-site meeting. It's very popular right now. We also broadcast our live streaming to the public for those people are following this topic but cannot afford to come to this same place. But the spreading and promotional knowledge is quite important. This seminar just reflect kind of the truth. And Taipei, as the organizer, we really want to expand the influence and impact by the seminars in these 2 days. But we understand this is the day 2 agenda. We also got the whole 6 topics under the theme this year. We call it People-Centered Resilient City. And the topic design based on our professionals and also the experts provide their insight and inviting all the guest speakers around the world. So thank you very much for your time. And at this moment, I would like to proceed with the closing ceremony. And at this moment, on behalf of Taipei City government, the Deputy Secretary General are right here. He's going to be the host of the closing ceremony. So let us welcome from the Taipei City Government, Zhang Wende, who is the Deputy Secretary General, come out to stage to have a closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Deputy come out stage.
Mr. Kendra and Director Lisa, and all our friends from CityNet, good afternoon. I'm the Deputy Secretary General of the Taipei City Government, Zhang Wende. It is my great pleasure to say a few words on behalf of Taipei City Government and Mayor Jiang. I would like to thank you for your participation so that we can have the great discussion and achieve a lot of results. Over the past 2 days, we have witnessed different cities' approaches on disaster preparedness, response, and prevention. Of course, some measures are focused on building cities' resilience. And what we have learned, of course, will be part of our future work. For example, we start from the first topic, data governance for intelligent decision making. Taipei City, they share our AI solution through data analytics. We can have more precise decision making. that, of course, will also enhance the quality of our decision. We also use some system to that detect earthquake, and that will also win some time to get prepared for the upcoming earthquake. The second session, we talked about implementing gender equality, disability, and social inclusion in the disaster management. Taipei City Government shared our experiences on how we deal with the disaster response, especially fire at long-term care facilities. Cross-agency partnership collaboration is very important, and we should work on that more in the future. The third session, we talked about the CityNet best practices, and we also learned from Makati City, and also we learned the experiences from Nepal to raise disaster preparedness, awareness. And we also learned about iCare, which is very inspiring to us. Taipei City also share our experiences. We have actually worked on disaster risk reduction and readiness, response, and post-disaster recovery and reconstruction. We have accumulated a lot of experiences in this area. And today, we discuss the promoting whole community disaster preparedness, and we learned about the experiences of Matsuyama City, as well as from the Gazesby, raising awareness is very important, and the Taipei City also shared our resilient community to strengthen our readiness. All this has indicated that the communities plays a very important part in disaster preparedness and response. Communities' participation is indispensable. The government need to work with communities to build a resilient city. This morning, we also talked about the fifth theme, climate change adapting action. Taipei City shares our vision to implement 2 degrees Celsius temperature reduction so that the Taipei City can become a cooler city. And of course, it is very important to manage water resources, since the water is essential to people's life. Amid the disaster, we still need water resources for city residents. And I just listened to the discussion on disaster risk finance. We are focused on how we can use some financial tools to mitigate the risks, especially financial risks. Sometimes you can get prepared even before disasters. And through this mechanism, and we can be really financially prepared for any future disasters. So this is a very important part of the risk reduction against a disaster. So I myself have learned a lot from this session. We have talked about 6 important topics. And this also showcases the significance of the getting together at the CityNet. We have learned from each other about the different measures taken in different cities. All this discussion will become a foundation for our future partnership. People-centered resilient cities is the theme of this year's CityNet Disaster Cluster Seminar. Inclusiveness is also very important. We should always take care of the vulnerable groups. Education and knowledge that sharing should be a part of our life, should be part of our day-to-day work. So we just laid a very good foundation for our future partnership. From the science and technology side, and we started from discussion on data governance, and then to how we can tackle the vulnerabilities of our community so that we can enhance our adaptive capability. All this is vital to a resilient city. Taipei City, of course, has been working very hard to preempt any challenges by our forecasting. So disaster is something we need to face. But we need to get prepared because disasters sometimes will change our way of life. When that happens, collaboration and partnership is the way for us to tackle the challenge together. We need to help ourselves. We also need to help each other. And of course, the government will also be a part of the whole effort against disaster. It is my hope that everybody has learned a lot from our discussion at this seminar. And every city will really become an even more resilient city in the future. I hope you will find you will stay in Taiwan, a memorable one, a pleasant state in Taipei City. We hope that you will come back to Taipei many more times in the future. Again, spend a little bit of money, stay at luxury hotels, and do some sightseeing. And of course, partnering with us for our future endeavors. And we also hope that you can tell your friends and anybody you know that Taipei is a wonderful city, and we welcome everybody to visit Taipei. And we are welcome for any possibility of partnership. This will work together to make every city a resilient city. I hope you find the past 2 days a rewarding session, and let's work together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General. John, on behalf of the Taipei City government and on behalf of the mayor, Wayne Zhang. Now, in his closing remarks, once again, he mentioned about the theme of the year and covered 6 very major topics orchestrated by the committee. So this is a very great contribution and just form the inside talk. But in addition to the inside talk, the conference has not ended here, because later and tomorrow, the day 3, we still continue the outside visit. So not just see the theory or the concept we're talking about here, we're going to bring you to see the best practice inside the Taipei City, how to do the disaster prevention. So that is the topic, okay, from the agenda to the action. So we can still learn from each other during this afternoon, and also tomorrow we'll bring you to a very big facility and see how we actually work. Especially tomorrow, everybody expect very much is Taipei Dome. That's the maybe 15 days later is our national day there, and there's a celebration will take place there. How to conduct and execute the prevention for disaster and all the VIP get there. That's very challenging. So we would like to see how you feel about that. That's another part. And also, the Secretary General says something about stay longer in Taipei. That's true, right? Just echo the Mayor Wen in the opening ceremony. He say, we give you the $100 deposit in your Easy card. Still have that? The card in your gift bag. The card, just like an MRT card. Yeah, let's deposit $100 NT. You can spend money there. You can take the MRT, take the bus to the convenience store, 7-Eleven or Family Mart, to purchase the small stuff. And you also can use your cash to add value. All right, so very simple. Shapu, shapu, shapu. Stay longer, all right? 101. The Eastern, the CBD, that is the worst to go. And we have 3 beauty in Taiwan again. One is a beautiful scenery. Second, we have a very delicious food and cuisine, right? And then we have very warm hospitality. Through our volunteer and our staff, the fire department, we try to offer the best service for all of the international guests and domestic as well. So maybe we are gonna do a closing ceremony in our discussion, but our site visit and the tour is going to start. Are you expecting that? Looking forward to it? Yes, okay. Now, a couple of things I announced here, and then we can dismiss you to go to the lobby, and our shuttle bus waiting for you right up there. One, about the slides. Some guest asked, can we download the slides, the PPT? During the 2 days. Actually, we have a QR code already set in the program book. You just scan it and you can see those page by page online. That's the first benefits. Second, for the internet, the simultaneous devices, when you select your language, you just leave it there in your table. You don't have to bring it to the bus. Just leave it on the table. We'll take care and retrieve those equipment for you. So remember, don't bring it out of this auditorium. And then the gathering time later, now it's about almost 3 o'clock. So in 15 minutes, 3:15 p.m., okay, 15 minutes later, we are going to invite you to join us on the lobby at the 2nd floor. Remember, 2nd floor is the lobby, and we will bring you to the bus and have the afternoon site visit, and the evening, another tour, the double deck tour bus will show you the nightlife of the Taipei. And tomorrow, another site visit will take place tomorrow. Okay, so thank you very much for joining our day 1 and the day 2 seminars. We hope to see you soon, and we still have time to hang around together. Some people say we run these seminars on the disaster cluster with a very good level, so we expect, like the Secretary General say in the welcome dinner, say we want to continue to put our efforts for the next time, maybe the annual Congress. So welcome to support. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right.